All right, welcome to another episode from the Chart Reader. So we're going to look at 5 tickers today, but it really will be a 2-chapter video here. So we'll take a look at SMCI. We were talking about this one on the last videos. We talked about the beautiful channel between the 100 and the 200. Earnings was the only thing slowing this thing down, holding it back. Really interesting candle reaction on the day of the earnings. But hey, end of the day, we held the moving averages. We held the 8 specifically. And oh my goodness, I love the channels. Break the 100, go to the 200, and just look at where we're at right now, right? So real fun one to talk about for here. A volume, I mean, just so much good stuff to talk about, right? Not quite the same when we look at the other half. And look, Rigetti at the moment is still it still has a chance to prove itself. I'm gonna at least say it like that, right? But things are getting a little concerning here, right? On SMCI, where I was excited that we were gonna break the 100 and go to the 200, I'm a little worried right now that we might lose the 50 and come all the way down to the 100, right? I think that's a little extreme. By no means do I really think 640. There's a number of lines down here I'm going to at least reference, if not draw, right? But we have a really critical, let me just stay right there. Sorry to zoom in and out. I hate when I do that. I'm sorry. We have a really critical support at 1020 right here. And again, more than anything, like I said, we cannot lose the 50. Clearly under it, not a good candle. Double digits, never a good thing, right? But we never get too excited on the way up. We're not going to get overly scared on the way down, right? Let's see how this thing confirms. I think what worries me, and obviously I'll start talking about it a bit, is how the other ones look, right? Are they all going to kind of move the same way? Are they all going to, recover? I think last thing we'll say here before going into more details, let's take a look at NASDAQ really quickly, right? And I was excited about this 20K candle, all right? I was this one also? No, this was 19.9. But this was a Friday 20K candle. This isn't necessarily a bad one, but by no means is it a great one, right? Because again, this gets over some moving averages, right? We're definitely still under that orange one, obviously. This gets over the last one. So as nicely as this one confirms that we're over these two, hey, I still have a confirm that we got over the last one in all of them, right? So this doesn't quite confirm this one. Obviously, this does the exact same, not quite for this one, right? So there's a little bit of lack of confirmation on NASDAQ. There's a little bit of, hey, are we still kind of holding this instead of breaking and going? Obviously, I'm glad we're up here instead of down here, but I think it's at least some, it's more 50-50 than ideal, even though it looks prettier than 50-50, right? So the point of me saying that is, look, I think SMCI has been able to kind of ride this up pretty well. I think the fact that the quant sector really hasn't, that's a bit disappointing, all right? And again, I'll go over those thoughts more shortly, but again, if NASDAQ's doing relatively well, especially for a solid 3 days on the last week, I would at least expect these little random tech tickers to do the same. SMCI, you can say, has done that, but when the other ones don't, that adds a little worry, right? So cool. Yeah. So before we go any further and I give you more of my thoughts and opinions, what are we going to do? Same thing we always do, right? We'll take a look at the daily and the weekly to see how these things are setting up short term. We have our 5 moving averages. There are horizontal support and resistance lines that I do draw manually myself. And then when we are done up here, we'll use the MACD, RSI, and volume as our lower indicators. Hey, really quickly, if you can, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video online with... Wow, I messed that up. But share this thing, say some good stuff, support, like... I appreciate anything you do. Let's get into this. All right, this is actually a really solid chart right here. So I'm zooming out to basically right here. All right, and look, this 38.90 line, give or take, is it's a pretty good line right here. All right. You can see it's about 50% of this big candle back in the day, basically the bottoms of these little moments. And then you can see some solid attempts at breaking that and failing, right? So basically, over the entirety of 2024, this thing was being hit for basically 6 months of it, right? Basically, five right there and a little bit right there, right? So this line had a lot going on, and in a lot of ways, the goal was I guess you can say threefold, right? Number one, don't lose this line. Number two, don't lose these moving averages that it just took, right? And I'll talk about this take, because as pretty as it looked, there actually wasn't a lot of confirmation in this thing yet, right? And then really, ultimately, what we wanted, what the hunt was, break the 100, make me believe you're going to go to the 200. And I remember zooming out and just saying, look, we've been trying. Can we actually do it? And hey, lo and behold, we did, right? So the funny thing is, this system is actually saying that earnings hasn't happened yet. When I went online, what I basically did was I went to their investor relations, I went to the events, and I saw that they actually did have their earnings. You can see it. It's an hour recording that you can listen to, and it was on this 2/11 day. So I don't necessarily know why that's happening. But yeah, this was a really interesting earnings candle right here. All right. You know me, I really don't want to lose more than 50% of yesterday, regardless when the candle before, right? I obviously don't want it to close under one of my lines, right? But you hear me say it a bunch of times. I very much respect these. These are computer generated lines, right? I'm just a dude clicking horizontally and not even really zooming in that well to like correct them sometimes, right? So my manual lines are here for good enough, and believe me, good enough will save or make you money. Believe me, nothing's financial advice. This is all entertainment. You know that, right? But yeah, these matter way more to me, right? And look, it is very difficult to get above a bunch of moving averages. It should be very difficult to go below them, right? So holding that stack of four really, really meant a lot more to me. From there we see it. It basically lived on the line, held. So there's a bunch of things I'm trying to say right now. Um, there's a phenomena that I talk about often. You go away from the 8 and you either come back down to it, or you wait horizontally and then you can bounce, right? One big stock I like to show is SoFi on this big climb. SoFi is really good at going away, staying horizontal, going away, stay horizontal, going away, stay horizontal, right? And again, it's not perfect. There's a little bit of a dip there from an earnings, this and that, right? But that was doing it better than, say, SoundHound for the moment, that would go away, come back to, go away, come back to, go away, come back to, go away. Like, it wouldn't necessarily go and then horizontal. Go, like, there were losses that could have scared people, right? So when I look at SMCI, I really like that. And obviously, this is less about bragging about this line right here. It really, really is. I like it when we go away from the 8 and then horizontally wait till we catch up to the 8 and then use it like a good support and bounce point all the way up, right? So that to me is really pretty. That to me, as a TA, technical analysis kind of nerd, that's what I love seeing, right? So that's a big thing I at least want to make sure you put in your back pocket. The next thing is, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit ago, this is an interesting climb of all the moving averages, because look, yes, you get over this one. That doesn't necessarily confirm this one, because a doji never counts, but hey, even this doji just got over the next one. And then from there, this candle, it's nice. It for sure confirms this one, but all of a sudden we just broke another moving average. So now I need something to confirm this one. All of a sudden this one does the exact same thing, right? So we're literally taking moving averages each day, kind of confirming the last one, but now all of a sudden requiring this bigger secondary confirmation, right? So this was a good candle. I think if earnings wasn't right there, we probably would have done this a little quicker than otherwise. But hey, end of the day, the big thing really was we stayed horizontal. And again, I promise you I'm not bragging about that line. You know that's not my game, right? This easily could have come, and again, it's not the biggest of differences, but yeah, going from 42 to 45 would have been a lot worse than basically staying horizontal at 42 until it took off, right? So nice little technical work, nice little break right here. Look, this next part starts to actually become a little more 50-50. Okay, I think there are more things here that say this looks good and it's probably hungry, but there's a couple things I do need to respect. I want to go to the weekly next before I start giving some numbers. Okay, so this isn't too bad, but again, I think my concerns are also here. So let me talk about the weekly and then we'll go back to the daily. So we still haven't broken the last moving average here. So that's 58.71 when you're looking at the box over there. That's the 50 MA line, right? 74 is actually relatively low, and hey, you can see it right here. We were living in the 90s, 80s, 90s, 95, right? 98 at the peak of it. So there's at least a belief that we should be able to keep going and maybe at least get to the 80. What's your 50%? No, that's too low. I think there's a decent chance that this will actually hit 63. I'm clicking at like 6280-ish right now, right? But I think 63 is actually plausible. 64, yeah, 63 is plausible right here on SMCI, maybe next week. It's still early in this week, you can say, right? So let's see where this thing closes, right? But I think that could be an interesting thing. If this week continues and actually goes a little bit more and actually gets near 60 bucks by Friday, I would be curious to see where this number ends. From there, it actually might be a little harder. I think if we close under, I can see it going over next week and then coming back down the week after, kind of a doop, 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 right? If we do too much this week, which again, not necessarily a bad thing, right? But if it goes up too much this week, I might be a little concerned about a 50 moving average rejection. That's basically my thoughts right here on the daily. Look, we're obviously over the 200. That's a beautiful thing, right? But as I zoom out, the first thing I'm thinking about is this 100 moving average line. Look at how many times we had to hit it over that year before we really got over it again, right? And now all of a sudden we're at a line that we haven't even touched in a good amount of time, right? This was a loss, that was a hot knife through butter, right? And this thing definitely lost all five and died, right? So we saw the bad side of the moving average under. There is plenty of green, 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 red, red, red to make this an excuse me, a little hiccup, an interesting green, green, green up, right? But man, it's a lot more 50-50 about what's going to happen with the 200 moving average. I think though, like I said on this weekly, I think there's a chance that we just kind of continue on up basically into the 60s, then kind of come back down and go up, right? And I think I could still kind of see that here. What's that line right there? 61, right? I can see us coming up to 61 and then maybe coming back down to like 57, 58 before, hey, this thing's really going to decide, are we actually over the 200? Are we actually over them all and ready to go or not? So after that 61, I would see, I think up more. I think that one. I would see 81. Do not listen to me. Don't be thinking about $112, right? This is a $55 stock. That's more than 2x. I think that's a little greedy right there. Again, I would used to do that back in the day myself, so I say that with love and a smile, right? You know I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I think 61 is a very realistic target. I think from there we're really going to see how it reacts. Number one to that line, number two to the 200 moving average, and number three to the 50. And look at that. That line is basically the again, you know I say it all the time, right? Like there was a moment when that line was just a little bit under. I took it a little bit higher up instead, right? So I'm basically talking about that 50 moving average line right there, right? So get me over those and then I'll start to be a little bit more excited. But I think the good thing is, hey, earnings has come and gone. earnings wasn't too crazy. We held the lines. I just don't know because again, I didn't watch the earnings, I didn't listen to the earnings, I didn't look at a recap of it. I don't know if it was good enough to make me believe we're gonna like. Let me know your thoughts, please, if you actually like listen to it and you know, right? I remember this drop from earnings was more about accounting shenanigans, I think, than it really was the numbers or the guidance or something like that. Like, let me know if you feel something changed, right? What I do like is these lower indicators, and I love this volume. All right, that is a really healthy volume growth, right? When I look at this stock, there's a pump and then kind of a drop. There's a pump and then a drop. Little sustained, maybe little sustained, but this is a nice, really good sustained 2 weeks of volume, right? And just kind of zooming back, the last real nice one comparatively to this was maybe this. This looks way healthier, right? This starts with a pump, is basically able to sustain, which is a good thing. I can even draw it there and say that's still a good thing, right? But I like this. That's nice, right? So let me know if you have better details about the earnings. I'd love to hear that thought. When you look at the weekly's not as pretty with the volume, but in a lot of ways, look, it's still early in the week and we're pretty close to the 50 line, right? I don't think we're going to come all the way up here, right? So I don't think we're going to have that kind of a thing, but hey, maybe we'll make something like that, right? Not necessarily as pretty as this one, but you know, we've seen it sustain like this before on the weekly chart, right? So let's watch the lines. I think a big test is going to be that 6130. I'm glad earnings has come and gone, and yeah, we've sustained it, right? So I don't think I talked about the MACD and RSI too much here. That's a beautiful divergence, right? 84 is a little high. If the NASDAQ can do a little better, and that basically means confirm we've broken this and give me one good candle, right? For sure, if you can get over that right there, yeah, right? But we're still kind of struggling with 50% candle right here. Roughly speaking, that's where the gap up open was today, right? So get me a little closer to like 20,150. 140, 150, and I think I'll start to be a little more comfortable. If NASDAQ can do well, and I don't know if you've been watching my videos for a while, right? During that big NASDAQ run, you kept hearing me say on videos, I'll ignore the RSI. NASDAQ's still a little too choppy and a little too iffy for me to say that, right? So with that, I'm still going to respect this 84. That should require a cool down. I'm hoping we can just sneak on up, like I said, and come back down and see what that looks like. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. I'm going to now take a quick look at the quantum sector, all right? And you know, I don't even know where to start right here, right? I think I want to start here with the NASDAQ. It's kind of where I ended the opening thoughts. I think it's a good place to start here. Look, NASDAQ hasn't been pretty. NASDAQ has been wildly choppy, up and down, can't figure out what it wants to do, lose moving averages and come to the 100, break the resistance, break all the moving averages and go back up to all-time highs, right? It's a pretty big 50-50, really, right? In that time, what we've basically seen is a horizontal trade here. All right. And for a guy like me that looks for these crazy parabolic up and downs, sometimes horizontal isn't too bad. All right. Especially if the NASDAQ is going crazy to just kind of stay steady and wait, does in a lot of ways become a good thing. Okay. One thing I talk about at the beginning of this video was about SMCI and a good channel. Look, I don't like when we lose the 8 and come to the 20 and then lose the 20 and come to the 50 with the distance that much, right? That's a big fall from almost 13 all the way down to 6 something. That's a 50% drop, losing the 20 and coming to the 50. We had that same thing basically happen here. And hey, the loss from the 20 to the 50 was a lot smaller, right? It was basically 12 to 10, give or take, right? Swallowable, right? Obviously a lot lower from this horizontal, but hey, still swallowable. We tried to bounce and no dice, right? And my issue, kind of going back to what I said a little bit earlier, we tried to bounce when NASDAQ actually bounced, right? It's not holding and breaking and confirming and going just yet, right? Like I said, it's 50-50, but fine. Why couldn't this do that same 50-50 and bring me here instead of where I'm sitting now? And again, my fear, going back to why I was talking about the channel space, is, oh man, if we lose the 50, the next line down is the 100. The 50 to the 100 is that same 50% drop that we saw right there, right? Now, like I said, this is a good strong line. I don't know if I'm going to keep it, but I would for sure draw that line. Maybe I would even say, no, it's hard to say which one. Somewhere between 816 and 790. I'm going to leave it at 790. I think that's the next support. But again, going from 1020 to 780, that's a tough drop. And look, green, red, red, green, nothing in between a lot of that, right? So that might be a fast channel. And again, really, like I said, I don't even know if I should delete this line or not, because end of the day, this 100's still kind of coming up. And yeah, I think by the end of the week, it's probably going to get there, right? So keep 780. Where does that look on the weekly? Oh, that's where the 20 moving average is. Look at that right there. There's no need for me to draw this line. We are either going to lose the 8 and come to the 20, or this golden line is going to hold. That's the Rigetti summary right there. Really, we need to get over 1420. I think that's really the magic number right here. For me to start to believe. Truth be told, if you can wait a little bit more and just take this thing to 1550, that's probably going to be the safest thing. But yeah, these are starting to look scary right here. And look, I know I talked about volume. This used to be the volume king, the volume queen for my ladies watching this, right? We used to pass almost 400 million shares. This was a 387 million share day. We're basically 90% lower and down to 48, right? So we used to average all day 200 million. All of a sudden, we're starting to average about 60. That's significant, right? So I know I was saying volume needs to. Otherwise, what we're gonna wait for. What was a stock I can think of? Look, I don't really know. Let's just go to SoundHound. I'm sure. Oh, that's a bad one. No, let's look at it right here. Otherwise, what's going to need to happen is we've made the white line go up too high. All of a sudden, we can't hit it, can't hit it, can't hit it, can't hit it. Look at what happens when you can't hit it, can't hit it, can't hit it, can't hit it. All of a sudden, you go from up here to down here at the worst of it, right? So it's important to get that. Eventually, we'll catch up to it. And eventually, the goal is going to be, again, to break it, right? And that's where we're at with Rigetti in a lot of ways. Look, we've made the white line go from down here to up here. We're now in a place where we're having some difficulties to hit it. And hey, it's done a good job staying horizontally through most of it. But we need a turnaround. We need this 10. Do not lose 1020. All right. Maybe I would call 930 losing 1050, but yeah, losing 1020, but I would start to get real scared if we go below 10 right there. Okay. So from there, I think things get magnified as you start looking elsewhere. Look, that's not necessarily a big bad candle that says I've lost the 50. That is, but that doesn't confirm, that doesn't confirm. And in a lot of ways, you can say that doesn't confirm. Losing this one, going under that one is a maybe, but now this feels like we've lost the 50 and we're making our way to here at least, right? So this is an important spot for this, right? That's the line that I would draw, 3250, 3260, right? I think that right there is equivalent of that 788 line that I drew but deleted, right? I think that must hold. Like literally where we're at is the bottom of this thing. It's the bottom of this thing. It's basically the top of this thing right here. We can't lose 3280. Let's call it 3275. I think if you go below there, all of a sudden we're thinking 2850. All of a sudden we're we're worried that we've lost the 50, gone to the 100, and that might ripple down there to our Rigetti, right? QBTS, when we look at it, this one's still tight. This one's still holding. This one's actually a little bit above and a little bit better than Rigetti, right? But I'm seeing the same inability to hit the white line. I'm seeing the same white line go from down here to up here. Maybe not as extreme as Rigetti, because yeah, we hit 200, but it's not like we did it a bunch of times, right? Like the average was a little closer to here than so again, a couple different ways to like slice the volume, but end of the day, look, if too many start to lose the 50 and head to the 100, this one might as well, right? So I think the lines are pretty good here. You got to break 665. Otherwise, oh man, if we start to get into 560 territory, that's where things get scary. That's where we might fall to 460, let alone all the way down to 390, right? And again, you can see the same thing. I know I didn't say it on IonQ, but I'll at least say it here. This had the shot to make the recovery that NASDAQ at least did, even a fake one, whatever. Get me over the lines, even if it's fake, right? It at least gives me a little bit of support during the week. Now we're just kind of living in that right? QUBT, last one, and yeah, this one looks the scariest. This one's basically lost the 50, basically kissing the 100, and man, volume is rough here, right? I will easily say this one was a little more pump and dump and choppy, right, as compared to the other four, but I think this is seeing the biggest effects and the biggest hindrances and why I always say volume is king, volume is queen for the ladies, right? Like I'm just asking you to be average. I'm asking you to be the C student in the class. I'm not asking you for B plus or A minus or better. If you're not even average, you can't expect good things, right? So this is the loudest in the four. I'm worried that this gets louder on the other ones, right? I think what really, you can say in some ways it's a good thing, right? I put Rigetti and IonQ in the beginning for a reason, right? They're both at really important support. This one is a golden line right here. This one is a multiple big candle hitter, right? Bottom of this, bottom of this, bottom of this, top of this, right? Over a couple month period. We got to hold this. I'll draw it just for the easy visual, right? Like boom, 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 right? Almost half of this thing perfectly. Bottom of this one too. Like we're actually under that right now, and that's not good. Get out of here. Was this the line? This was the line. This right here, not quite half of that. That right here, that was the line. We wicked it today. We can't lose that. And I think both of these having a good line, and I think in some ways QBTS just really having the moving averages as the line, right? I think all three of these are at a really critical place, and tomorrow better bounce. Or I'm not here to say, spread fear. I've never used the words buy, sell, hold during any of this, right? But there are expectations that might make me lean on them going down. Otherwise, they better break those lines up so that they can keep going to the lines above that, right? So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Oh, I appreciate you so much.